Oli here, and this is my review of Kanan and Company. Doctor Who's first ever spin-off featuring Kanan in a co-leading role with John Leeson voicing K9, and Elizabeth Sladen reprising her role as Sarah Jane Smith, everyone's favorite intrepid journalist, who is the lead in the spin-off. The only episode of Kanan and Company is called A Girl's Best Friend and is written by Terence Dudley. So the spin-off came about when John Nathan Turner asked Elizabeth Sladen to return for Logopolis, the Fourth Doctor's final story, and the reason he asked her to come back was to help the Fourth Doctor ease into his generation, and Sarah Jane will probably stay until early on in the 19th season, but Sladen turned it down because she thought she didn't want Sarah Jane to be a companion again. He also asked Louise Jameson, who played Leela, to return, but she declined as well. But John Nathan Turner also realized that K9 was still popular with the children and decided to create a spin-off of K9, and he pitched the show to Elizabeth Sladen with the hopes of Elizabeth with Sarah Jane as the lead, and she accepted it. Right. So Girl's Best Friend aired on December 28th, 1981, a week before Peter Davison's first story, Castrovalva, debuted. Yeah, and unfortunately, the BBC didn't pick up Kanan and Company for a full series, but I think it was a good thing because if it wasn't for Kanan and Company, it wouldn't have established Sarah Jane Smith from being a full-on independent character, and I think she was pretty much the first companion to get her own spin-off Big Finish series, and of course her main spin-off series. Well, not the first, but she did. But it also led to the Sarah Jane Smith, the Sarah Jane Adventures airing 25 years after A Girl's Best Friend aired. So the plot of A Girl's Best Friend is as follows. Sarah is looking forward to spending a quiet Christmas with Aunt Lavinia in the sleepy village of Morton Harwood. But when she arrives, she finds that her aunt is missing and a surprise present from an old friend waiting to be opened. Sarah and her aunt's ward, Brendan, are soon caught up in the affairs of a mysterious cult who practice the black arts and are preparing a human sacrifice. But they have the Doctor's gift to aid them, a robot dog who answers to the name of K9. So that is the plot of The Girl's Best Friend. In my opinion, I think A Girl's Best Friend is a great story and a good way to establish the show, and it's a shame that it was cancelled, but at the same time, if Kane and Company got picked up for a full series, we probably wouldn't have gotten the Sarah Jane Adventures, which I said before. The production was very well done. In terms of sets, we only had Lavinia's house and other places in Morton Harwood, which looked quite ordinary, which I liked. The location filming was very well done. I do have a bit of a fascination with the title sequence, which was just John Leeson saying Kanan over and over again, and then while Sarah Jane is doing some activities like reading a newspaper, going for a jog, drinking wine at a bar, and just randomly driving with K9 in some other places. And obviously, K9 is just standing somewhere. I think there was one scene he was perched on like a ledge or something. It was the most 80s thing I've ever seen, and it was quite funny as well. The script was very well done, and I think the direction by John Black was quite good. And I think the plot was very interesting, and I like the fact that witchcraft was the main plot of the story, and I liked how the writer didn't have some development saying that witchcraft is an alien concept that came to Earth eons and eons ago, and it was pretty much established within human law. And I thought if this is a Doctor Who story, they probably would have gone down that route. But I do like the fact that there is some continuity from the main show that's brought into this spin-off, such as Sarah Jane and Lavinia being from Croydon, and the Doctor obviously dropping K9 off at Croydon, which obviously Lavinia picked up and took to Morton Harwood. I think the story had some very fantastic moments. The first one being when Sarah Jane opened the box that K9 was inside, and K9 told Sarah that the Doctor shall always remember her, and he sent her his love, which I do find ironic because in The Hand of Fate, the Doctor didn't actually drop off Sarah Jane at Croydon, which is revealed in school reunion, turned out to be somewhere in Aberdeen. I also liked how Sarah Jane and K9 also came to the rescue of Brendan, and Sarah Jane actually like full on attacked one of the cult members with some martial arts. I think she probably picked that up from the Doctor, or she probably had some self defense mechanism lodged somewhere in her brain, which I thought was quite awesome. I also really liked the ending of the story when everyone was gathered at, I think it was Lavinia's house, and Kanan was trying to say we wish you Merry Christmas, and I thought that was a very sweet scene. And the performances, I think they were like very good. Elizabeth Sladen did very well here, and it was great to see her as the lead role in her own TV show, which we definitely do see a lot more of in the Sarah Jane Adventures. And it's great to see her like not being like a sidekick for the Doctor, which was still quite effective. But obviously, I think Sarah Jane is a very independent character. We did see her independence like grow in when she was with the Doctor, and we definitely see her more on her own. I mean, in this spin-off and Sarah Jane Adventures as well, which I still think was like very good. And I still admire the fact that Sarah Jane is actually still a journalist, and she obviously comes to Morton Harwood to see her Aunt Lavinia, but she's obviously gone to America for a lecture, and has to pick up a ward a schoolboy named Brendan. And Sarah Jane meets quite a few of the villagers, including a postal officer named Lily Gregson, some other people like her neighbors, Lavinia's partners, and etc. etc. And I also liked how like Sarah Jane was trying to like convince people that the cult are behind Brendan's abduction, which it obviously were, but then no one was actually believing her. And I liked how Sarah Jane actually suspected that her neighbors, the Bakers, were pretty much a part of the cult because they were quite dismissive of Sarah Jane's claims of the Hecate cult being present in Morton Harwood. Kanan was very good in this story, and this is obviously a new Kanan model. Well, obviously he looked the same as the first two predecessors, but he refers to himself as K9 Mark III. This is obviously the same K9 that was in the Five Doctors, like saying, like warning Sarah Jane of warning Sarah Jane of danger, and the same K9 that was in School Reunion that blew himself up in the school. And I think Kanan does some very good things in the story. I like how he pretty much rescued Brendan from the Tracys who were about to adopt Brendan, but Kanan stunned one of them, and that's how they were able to tie one of them up. But I think John Leeson does have some very good chemistry with Elizabeth Sladen, which explains why Sarah Jane quickly became fond of K9. He isn't written as a quick fix problem character as he was in Doctor Who, but he does have some moments where he's a bit of a quick fix, but he's more of his own character here and actually is a vital part to the plot as opposed to Doctor Who where he's just a magic tool for the Doctor to help the Doctor get out of sticky situations. And the sidecast, they're all quite good. Slightly underdeveloped, but they're all quite good. First off, we had Brendan Richards, a schoolboy, and he was Lavinia's war staying with Lavinia, and he became a target of the Hecate court when they tried to kidnap him, but the attempt was thwarted by K9. The second attempt was successful, which pretty much led to K9 and Sarah Jane coming to his rescue before they decided to sacrifice him. I actually liked Brendan. I think of him as a prototype Luke Smith because I think when Russell T Davies was creating Sarah Jane Smith, I think that he probably looked at Sarah Jane's relationship with Brendan and thought, maybe we can give Sarah Jane like a kid companion to work with Sarah Jane Smith. Obviously, Sarah Jane Adventures was a kids show, and obviously they needed like an established character working with like school children, which was quite cool still, suits to say the least. And had the BBC ordered the full series of Kanan and Company, he would have been one of the main characters. We also had Lavinia Smith, who is Sarah Jane's auntie, and Lavinia invites Sarah Jane over at Morton Harwood over at Christmas, but she randomly vanishes to the US for a lecture. And this causes Sarah Jane to become suspicious of her disappearance because it was the middle of Christmas, and why would Lavinia like randomly disappear to America whilst it's Christmas for a lecture? And obviously Sarah Jane starts to think that the Hecate cult was responsible for Lavinia's disappearance because Lavinia was also investigating witchcraft. It was later revealed that Lavinia was actually unharmed and she was actually in the US, but she tried to contact Sarah Jane, but the cult had pretty much cut off the phone line to the house. It's definitely nice to see Lavinia in the flesh, and I would imagine that she probably would have been a major part of the show if Kanan and Company had been picked up. Then we also had Howard and Juno Baker. They were friends of Lavinia, and they befriended Sarah Jane, and they didn't believe Sarah Jane's claims of the coven being in Morton Harwood, but then because Brendan was kidnapped and she was trying to like get someone to try and save him, but then obviously it turns out that they weren't members of the cult, and and they're pretty much good guys, and they pretty much spent Christmas with Sarah, Brendan and Kanan at the end. You also had Bill Pollock. He's Lavinia's partner and a member of the Hecate cult. George Tracy and Peter Tracy, and George was the manager of the market garden where Lavinia worked, and Peter was his son, and Peter was a criminal who got a suspended sentence and was placed under George's custody. There were also members of the cult, but Peter was quite reluctant to be a member of the cult, and he was quite reluctant to sacrifice Brendan, and he actually tried to warn Brendan of what was going on, but then obviously nothing really came up of it, and at the end they all were arrested and sentenced to try and murder Brandon. Then you also had Henry Tobias. He was the editor of the Morton Harwood Standard, the newspaper, and he was also a member of the cult. And at the end, when the cults were pretty much defeated by Sarah Jane and K9, Sarah unmasked them, and it turned out to be him and Lily Gregson, who was a part of the cult. Then we also had Sergeant Vince Wilson. He was a police officer and he was a member of the cult, and he was also opposed to the Hecate cult sacrificing Brendan, but he died in a heart attack whilst on his way to warn Sarah Jane Smith. And our villain was the Hecate cult, led by the High Priestess Lily Gregson, and she ran the post office that day and led the cult at night. Most of the sidecars, apart from Brendan, the Bakers, and Lavinia, were members of the Hecate cult, and they wanted to sacrifice Brendan because as he pretty much knew some stuff with the Coven and they needed the human sacrifice. And we don't actually find out at the end that Lily and Tobias were members of the Coven until they defeated. They posed as a good threat to Sarah Jane, but that was pretty much it. And I think the main problem with Kanan and company, with the girl's best friend, was that the Hecate cult themselves, they were all members were very underdeveloped, and all they did chant was Hecate, 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 and make human sacrifices. No clear motive as to why they did, and what they did. No backstory as to why the Hecate cult exists. And but I do think if Girl's Best Friend was a bit longer, we probably would have had some form of development, or maybe if it was picked up for a full series, there probably would have been like a more recurring villain, because we only see Lily like a couple of times in this story, and we assume that she's a very friendly person, and she is a very friendly person. She was quite jovial with Sarah Jane, and then afterwards, we didn't see her again until Sarah Jane unmasked her as the member of the Coven, as a member of the Hecate cult. But I think it was probably this story is pretty much done to like reintroduce Sarah Jane and Kanan as to put together as a duo. But I do think that A Girl's Best Friend is a story that properly establishes Sarah Jane Smith as her own protagonist, capable of having her own adventures, and K9 being a good sidekick, not just being a magical tool to help Sarah Jane get out of sticky situations. But I think if the series had been picked up, Kanan probably would have been reduced to that sort of role. But I do think that A Girl's Best Friend pretty much further cements Sarah Jane's status as one of the key characters in the Doctor Who mythology, and as well as making Kanan that pretty much works well with any character given. So I give Kanan Company an 8 out of 10. My next review will be Castrovalva, the debut story of Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor, but beforehand, and my special announcement will be coming very soon. So thanks for watching. Please let me know what you thought of Kanan and Company. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Follow me on the social media links below, and until then, see you later.